Hi guys, it's FD for Search5.tv, and in this video we are going to bring you something totally different. Why it's exciting that cryptocurrency or blockchain and artificial intelligence combined together could bring something that could upend the world as we know it today. That's what we want to cover in this video, and we're going to be looking at blockchain technology, our favorite cryptos, and artificial intelligence. That combination, if you stay long enough, I honestly believe we are all going to be extremely rich if we stay long enough within this market. But you got to stay long enough holding the right things. There are some things that are not the right things to hold. You need to hold the right stuff and also be patient. Patience is going to come on top. That said, before I jump into this, guys, please know that what I'm going to share with you are just my own opinions. They are not expert advice of any sort. It's just for educational as well as entertainment purposes. And this content is also not targeting UK audiences for obvious reasons. So, what are we talking about here? Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and AI together? Could they reset much more than money? That is the financial system, and what that could look like in practice. So buckle up. It's part economic manifest, part speculative futurism, and part cautionary tale. That's what we are diving into now. So hear me out. Here's my premise as to why the status quo is vulnerable. I'm talking of the financial system, society as a whole, and the way we interact with what's around us. Everything is vulnerable. Let's start by looking at the fragility in trust around centralized systems. Most systems we interact with today, they are all centralized. So for centuries, money, banking, and digital platforms have been built on centralized trusts. We trust banks, governments, technological platforms, and that they are going to operate fairly, securely, and in our interest, or at least stably. But crises, bailouts, inflation, surveillance, broken promises, censorship, all erode that trust. Crypto rises as a technological hedge. Don't trust but verify. That should be something that you live by. Don't trust but verify. So looking at the internet's hidden centralization, because most people don't actually understand what we mean when we say the internet today is actually centralized. Though the internet was sold as a free, decentralized network, over time, it became centralized. We're talking of the Google search engine, social media platforms like your Facebook and LinkedIn, cloud providers like your Amazon cloud services, identity systems, ad networks, or major choke points. The open web increasingly lives as a facade over consolidated control. AI multiplies this. A few corporations control powerful models, talking of ChatGPT and Gemini and many others, where personal agency is squeezed. If crypto and AI can embed decentralization, privacy, and user sovereignty into infrastructure, they can wrestle the internet and by extension society back from centralized gatekeepers. I honestly believe that. Let's look at the much trumpeted cyclical reset narrative, or the fourth turning as some people might call it. Analysts invoke generational cycles like the fourth turning, that's Strauss and Howe. Moments when old institutions crack, crisis breeds, upheaval, and new paradigms replace them. Some argue the current era is such a turning, and crypto and AI combined are core tools of the new order. In short, the stage is set, the old order is strained, new technologies are maturing. What if they meet halfway? What are we going to come up with? So enter crypto and AI. Could they actually re-architect finance, internet, and society? Let's start by money and finance. And here we're talking of moving from credit code. And the first thing we want to look at is the programmability and permissionless money. Bitcoin and crypto make money as software possible. Currencies, contractual conditions, yield logic, escrow, all become code. Financial flows that once required banks, trust intermediaries, and ledgers can become autonomous, verifiable, and peer-to-peer, which means you are destroying a whole layer of Web2 industries or current industries by going to the concept of money as code or credit as code and money as permissionless mode of exchange of value. Moving on to decentralized credit, lending, and banking 2.0, because we are assuming we are at banking maybe 1.0 or 1.5. With stablecoins and DeFi, lending and credit become disintermediated. The paper banking 2.0, the stablecoin banking revolution, argues stablecoins can restructure global finance by reducing reliance on traditional banking credit chains. Banks lose their monopoly in injecting credit and seizing balance sheet arbitrage. Crypto allows decentralized protocols, algorithmic rules, collateral over collateralization to perform credit, margin, insurance, even derivatives without trust in centralized institutions. Moving on to the global landscape and the concept of borderless finance. Current global payment systems and capital flows are fragmented by currencies, jurisdiction, corresponding banking. Crypto and AI can enable global atomic transactions, composable finance across borders. That weakens national financial sovereignty for better or for worse. For the global citizen, it will be for the better, but for those who want to look inwards, it could be a threat. Governments may try to resist with capital controls, CBDCs, sanctions, but crypto offers tools to evade, circumvent, and neutralize. It's a fight back. It's one concept against another. It's overreach versus versus freedom, control versus neutrality. Those are the concepts. Moving on to sovereign reserves and state interest. Some nations will adopt crypto as a reserve asset or strategic tools. There is already talk of the US's proposals for national digital asset stockpiles. I don't know if that still have legs, but I think Donald Trump might be developing cold feet. Anyway, crypto becomes not just investment if that concept of national digital stockpile becomes a thing. And if that happens, crypto might become not just an investment, but a geopolitical instrument, which they might end up using as a tool against their rivals and maybe against their own population. You never know. Now, let's look at the internet, identity, and artificial intelligence, the next dimensional layer. First of all, let's consider data ownership and privacy by design. In traditional web systems, data is captured, aggregated, and sold. In a crypto plus AI paradigm, users can own, license, monetize their data, feed AI in controlled ways, and revoke access. If you don't want someone to access or use your data, you revoke permission. AI models may query data via secure cryptographic protocols, for example, zero-knowledge, trusted execution environments, rather than harvesting user profiles. Moving on to decentralized AI models and governance, projects like OML, also known as Open, Monetizable, and Loyal AI, propose hybrid AI blockchain frameworks so models aren't captive to centralized silos, but can be shared, audited, and monetized transparently. This counters the concentration of power in big tech. AI becomes a public good rather than a private fortress. So I'm looking at people who've been hoarding data and information they are training their models on. You're talking of OpenAI, you're talking of Microsoft, Google's Gemini, and Grok from Elon Musk's X, formerly Twitter. Moving on to autonomous agents and AI as actors. Imagine smart agents on behalf of users, negotiating deals, managing finances, making purchases, operating under on-chain rules, permissionless economics, and wallet identities. In such a world, the boundary between human and AI becomes interactive. As a human, you delegate, but you also retain control via cryptographic overrides. What about the internet infrastructure? Can it be reimagined? Well, blockchains and AI can power decentralized compute networks, decentralized storage, censorship-resistant routing, identity systems, content monetization, all tied with financial incentives. A new Web3 stack is not just a layer, but a backbone. So those who are focusing on the new Web3 stack should actually be thinking this through. I think we've got quite a few other projects that are already doing this. Data storage, identity systems, content monetization. Some of them, there's still an element of Ponzi filling, but others, I think they are approaching this carefully and with caution. I suppose time will tell on that front. Let's look at societal and philosophical flow, from hierarchies to ecosystems, from top-down to polycentric governance. Traditional governance, that is states and corporations, that model is hierarchical. Crypto plus DAOs plus artificial intelligence enabled coordination allow polycentric multi-level governance. Communities, networks, coalitions, algorithmic rules. Society becomes more like an ecosystem or superorganism. A recent paper articulates how blockchain technologies could push humanity towards a superorganism with decentralized decision-making. But I suppose there will be other people with vested interest who will try and counter this. Let's move on to trust and legitimacy redefined. If validation, reputation, law, dispute resolution can be modular, transparent, rule-based rather than enforced by state monopolies, the basis of legitimacy shifts from institution to algorithmic or to algorithm. Authority becomes earned via cryptographic performance, not linear. And what would the new social contract look like? Well, instead of individuals giving rights to a sovereign for protection, participants enter protocol contracts, smart agreements, and consensus systems. Economic incentives and cryptographic fairness become components of their civic fabric. That will make life easier, won't it? But obviously, there are people who are hungry and thirsty for control. They will certainly not like that. So, where are we now? Where are the seeds, friction, and inflection? Let's start by looking at adoption, integration, and points of tension. Adoption is real, but uneven. A spatial econometric study finds crypto uptake correlates with economic instability, weak banking access, and existing infrastructure gaps. So, this statement is pointing at those projects that are focusing on banking the unbanked, overriding or cancelling middlemen or removing middlemen from transactions, and trying to address corruption. That's what the real adoption actually meant. And that adoption needs to be even. And then we have institutional legitimacy, which is growing at the moment, with Bitcoin transitioning from fringe to mainstream institutional asset through ETFs and being accepted by TradFi. And I also think the current policy from all over the world is in flux. Governments are drafting executive orders positioning crypto and AI as strategic sectors, for example in the US, in order to to strengthen leadership in digital financial technology. That's what the Trump administration has been pushing for. But I'm sure there are other ulterior motives there as well. Make hay while the sun shines. And as crypto grows, friction arises, leading to collisions with the regulator, tech securities laws, money transmission laws, capital controls, and surveillance. But here are the key barriers and the risks when we are talking of crypto and AI combining. First of all, let's consider the scalability and energy costs. On-chain capacity, latency, cost must match centralized incumbents to attract huge masses. So if you are coming up with a solution that is worse than current TradFi or traditional finance, maybe you are doing it wrong, or that product is not good to take us forward. You're taking us backward. Next, smart contracts exploit, protocol failures, consensus attacks. History is littered with them. That affects security and trust, and that could hinder adoption. Lack of trust and lack of security will act as a barrier to adoption, and it will be presenting some risks that people will not be willing to take. Next, if you consider the concentration of AI in the hands of a few that are controlling it, we are risking an oligopoly risk in artificial intelligence. You're talking of OpenAI, Gemini, and so forth. If AI remains centralized, crypto's decentralizing power will be weak. So AI and crypto combined must outbalance, not reinforce centralization. Otherwise, we are not heading anywhere at all. And let's not ignore the cognitive and cultural inertia, where people trust banks, governments, tech giants by default. Paradigm shifts take decades, so this might end up taking more than 1 or 2 cycles. It might go beyond the next cycle before we actually see decent and proper adoption of the combination of AI and crypto. So the compelling case here, why this reset could actually happen. Why do I think there is going to be a paradigm shift driven by crypto combined with artificial intelligence? Well, take convergence amplification as a disruptor. Crypto alone is powerful. AI alone is transformative. Together, they multiply each other's impact. AI agents trade, arbitrate, govern with crypto incentives. And then we look at systemic decay and crisis opportunity. As old institutions fold under debt, currency instability, surveillance backlash, climate shock, new systems are not just optional, they become necessary. So maybe it's good to have something on shelf waiting for these current systems to collapse. That could be the play here without actually us knowing that, but it's in the background. Then there is also that winner takes all network effects mentality. Money systems, identity systems, computer systems tend to centralize. So if you are one of those people who are championing your token or your coin to be the one winner and everything else fails, you are taking us back to centralization. I'm talking about these Marxists who just want Bitcoin to succeed, everything else dies. That would take us back to centralization. That's not the choice we want. We want proper choice. So the first viable decentralized alternative that works wins, massive inertia. In this case, you would say Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is only doing that as a store of value, not economic incentive creation. I don't think. Otherwise, if it was, the rest of the market would have died a long time ago. I think that is actually something working against Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin was programmable, the blockchain that is, we'll probably be talking of just one chain to rule them all. At the moment, there's still scope for other players. What about algorithmic transparency as a moral baseline? Well, in a world where opacity breeds corruption, being transparent becomes a competitive advantage. Systems that do justice by default may outlast those that rely on trust. Can't say it any better. And decentralized protocols plus machine learning can learn and evolve with community input, allowing governance to adapt continuously, not via rigid top-down chain, thereby providing adaptive feedback loops. So let's bring it all around and tie it all together. We are living at a hinge of history where money, identity, intelligence, and power overlap. If Bitcoin and crypto were once whispered about in corners, they now stand at the crossroads with AI, a technology equally ambitious and treacherous. Together, they are not merely tools for speculators, they are architects of a new world order. Picture a future where your wallet is your sovereign, your data is your property, your AI agent negotiates your daily transactions, your identity is portable yet private, and collective governance is code, not coercion. A world not ruled by banks, platforms, or governments, but mediated by consensus, by protocols, by incentives. Will this future fully arrive? At the moment, it's unclear, but the seeds are being planted as we speak. The old order will push back, there will be skirmishes, but if crypto and AI succeed, even partially, they may not just reset finance, they may reset the architecture of society itself. This is not a revolution, this is a refoundation, and we are all living in its first draft. Any thoughts, guys? Let us know in the comment section. Until the next one, FD465.tv. Bye for now.